Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman's recognized.
I rise in support of this bill. I want to thank Ranking Member Hall. I want to thank my good friends across the other side of the aisle, Mr. Chairman Gordon, Mr. Lipinski, for, as usual, working in a bipartisan way to get good things done for the country. I think the American people deserve that, and they want to see more of that of us up here in Washington. I was proud to be the lead Republican sponsor on this bill as well, because this issue is so important. A lot of times when you talk about cybersecurity, people's eyes kind of glaze over, and yet when we talk about cybersecurity, we're really talking about national security. We held hearings both in the Science and Technology Committee and on Homeland Security Committee where we examined the vulnerabilities and the threats presented by cyber attacks. And it's very frightening. When you talk to the top military advisors to the President, they'll tell you one of the greatest threats we face as a nation is a cyber attack, and that we are vulnerable. And when we had hearings on the issue, we heard that just about every federal agency, in fact everyone, including the Pentagon, had been hacked into. And this institution had been hacked into. And there have been major data dumps where information was stolen, and from countries that we cannot speak on the floor right now, but foreign countries stealing information from the United States government. There are really several areas. There's criminal enterprises who use cyber attacks to steal intellectual property. And then there's the realm of espionage, where we have countries that go in and steal information from the United States government, intellectual property, secrets within the government, data dumps the size of the Library of Congress. We had a classified program that was subsequently declassified that showed that through the click of a mouse, power grids could be blown up. Every critical infrastructure is tied to cyber networks, whether it be our utilities, our power grids, our financial institutions, whether it be air traffic controllers. Virtually every sector is tied to the networks, to the Internet, and therefore is vulnerable. This bill, I think, is a good step forward in helping to protect our networks, certainly in the federal government. Last year, I joined with Congressman Jim Langevin from Rhode Island, working with CSIS, who had worked on the Iraq Study Group as well, to put together a commission of experts across the nation, of cyber experts, to make recommendations to the next President of the United States. We made those recommendations to President Obama. I'm pleased that this bill actually fulfills one of the main recommendations in that report, and that is to provide improving federal cyber workforces within the federal government. And this bill does a lot more than that. I think improving research and development. This bill establishes cybersecurity R&D grant programs that focus on technical and human behavioral aspects of cybersecurity. It improves our federal cyber workforce, creates a scholarship program at NSF that can be repaid by federal service. And it improves coordination in the government. It gives NIST the authority to set security standards for federal computer systems and develop checklists for agencies to follow. And I think this is a very, very important point, because in our hearings, when we asked the Department of Homeland Security or representatives from the Department of Defense or NSA, who is in charge of defending our networks? Who is in charge? They couldn't answer that question because there isn't one person in charge. One of our recommendations was to have someone at the White House level be put in charge to coordinate the various agencies. And because there is no one in charge, there's the lack of coordination. So the very entities that have the offensive capability for a cyber attack are not coordinating with the agencies that are tasked with defending the nation from a cyber attack. I think that giving NIST the authority to set these standards for the first time is going to go a long ways in protecting our networks inside the federal government. It also reaches out to the private sector, which I particularly like about this bill. It emphasizes the implementation of checklists by federal agencies, that they should remain flexible and technology neutral in working with the private sector. It improves coordination outside the government by creating a task force of the federal government, universities who know this issue very well, and the private sector to coordinate the research and development. Yeah, I think this is the idea of a public-private partnership, rather than having bureaucrats in Washington make all these decisions, is vitally important to bring in the expertise of the private sector and the technology sector who know this issue very well. And as Chairman Gordon mentioned, this has broad-based support from business groups outside in the private sector and from the technology sector particularly. So with that, I think this is a great first step towards protecting our federal networks. I am again want to commend the great leadership on both sides of the aisle for making this happen today. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First, I want to thank my friend from Texas for his both co-sponsorship of this bill, but more importantly, his constructive, productive, bipartisan approach to bringing together this good bill. And now I want to yield 5 minutes to the primary sponsor of the bill and chairman of our Technology and Innovation Subcommittee, Mr. Wu.
The gentleman is recognized.